I'm Tamara Adlin, and this is the Never Search Alone orientation call, and we're going to get started. We're glad you're here. We're sorry you're here. You're probably here because you are looking for work, and you are either doing that sort of slowly because you're trying to figure out the next step in your career, or you're doing that fast because you have been unceremoniously booted out or lost your job or quit thinking it would be easier to get a job than it is, and it is hard out there. So you have found the first thing I like to say is you found something good. If I was coming at Never Search Alone from the outside, I would think this has to be a scam. The first parts of this must be free, and then they must sell you coaching or sell you like some tools. Nobody's going to sell you anything because there isn't anything that we're selling. The only thing that costs money, and you don't even have to do that, is the book. You do need to get your hands on the book or the audiobook version of the book. And if you want to borrow that from a library or a friend, we're fine with that. The book sales on this thing are not even funding like the online fees for hosting our webinar. This is not a huge money-making adventure. It's not. So that's it. That's the only thing. And so if anybody asks you for money for anything, they're not part of the system. So what that means is this is all run by a huge squad of volunteers. Everything is volunteer. The people who match you to your job search counselor are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. I've been doing this for 2 years, and I'm not going to stop. So it really is. You found a good thing. What it does cost is your involvement. It costs your commitment of your time and energy to the other people that are joining a job search council with you. So this is a significant amount of work, but it's work on your own behalf. And honestly, if you're looking for work, you're doing a bunch of work anyway. This is just organizing and bringing some sanity to what you probably think you should be doing anyway in looking for work. I highly encourage you to lean into it. I highly encourage you to commit the time and the space. And certainly, if it doesn't work for you, no harm, no foul. Just don't ghost. Let us know. Let your moderator know, and they will replace you, and you can come back anytime. So there is no permanent record, but it is a commitment of time. But anyway, like so many people are spending so many hours on job search anyway that it's the same. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what to expect. Some of you have been matched already to a job search council. Some of you have not. The way job search councils get matched is that your applications or your little forms go to Emily Teeter and her team, and you get matched according to relative level in your career, so that we don't have people just out of school and people who are in the C-suite on the same job search council, because that pushes the balance out of whack. And you really think about it like peer mentoring. You really want to be with your peers, at least in level and number of years. So by the way, if you are switching jobs or job roles and you've been working for 15 years, but only have 2 years of experience in this new field, don't tell us 2 years, tell us 15 years. So it's a level of your career. Okay. And if you made a mistake, just email us. Then we match by time zone. We don't match by job title. And sometimes we do try to match. So many people in this community are from tech because that's where these huge tech layoffs are going. But this is not just for tech people. There are people from healthcare. There are people from education. There are people from nonprofit, from government. This is for everyone. And we'll do our best to match you to the right people to help you through this process. Once you're matched, one person signs up to be the moderator. And the moderator is really another job seeker. It's just another job seeker. You probably saw in your little application, are you interested in being a moderator? The moderator is just one. You can read ahead. You can prepare yourself as much as you want, but also you can just be one chapter ahead. So really, if you're somebody who is fine with organizing meetings and keeping a conversation on track, you'd be a great moderator. If you're somebody who wants to build those skills of keeping a meeting on track or organizing a time or whatever, then you'd be a great moderator. And by the way, there are huge resources for the moderators as well. I think of it as the teacher's copy of the textbook, which I'm not sure even exists anymore, but we have moderator training. We have moderator groups that meet to help each other through this. And there's even moderator guides. All of the agendas are created. Everything that's operational and structural and documented is all done for you. You don't have to invent anything, so that you can focus all of your energy on just trusting the process and doing the work. Okay. And what happens is that your moderator will reach out. So what's going to happen is your moderator is going to get notified that they've been matched to a job search council. That job search council is going to have a number. At that point, the moderator is going to reach out to try to schedule meeting 0. And in many ways, the hardest part of this is finding a time to meet. There are two kinds of job search councils. There are fast seekers and slow seekers. The fast seekers, most of you are fast seekers. That means you are full-time trying to find a new job. Slow seekers are people who are considering their next step, but may already be working. And the only difference is that the cadence of the meetings is probably a little bit more farther apart, right? But the process is exactly the same. And the philosophy here is we should always be reconsidering who we are professionally, because that changes relatively often. So most of you are going to be fast seekers. Often what that ends up meaning is it's probably meeting once a week, probably for 60 to 90 minutes. And so again, figuring out the time for that is often the most difficult thing. When you get matched to a job search council and you get that number and you get the email from the moderator, is also going to be able to set you up in the Slack channel. Our Slack channel, I am going to share just so you can see. This is the, I know you're not going to be able to read it, but this is the Slack channel, and it's big. There are channels for moderators, 50 plus, fractional work, non-tech people, career changers, design, products, Seattle area. And then these numbered ones are all associated with different steps in the Never Search Alone process. This is a big community. Right now, there are 9,476 active users of this Slack channel, and you get this for free. You will get this after you get matched, and your moderator will give you the link to get onto here. If you are having trouble joining the Slack channel, send me an email. I will figure it out to help you out with that. The other thing that you will get, and again, it's all completely free, is this. You will get a copy of the JSC participant workbook. This is free. This is a ginormous 90-page workbook version of exactly the same process that is in the book. And what this does is it gives you it reminds me of in elementary school, they would give you a workbook to take home to do your homework, and you would just fill in the blanks. The idea here is that you don't have to think about the process. This is a tested, tried and true process. Focus on you, focus on the deep thinking that you're going to have to do, your goals, who you're going to talk to. We even have templates for you to take notes. So again, and there's links here to examples of all the exercises that you're going to do. So again, we're just trying to take any of the weight of figuring out nobody teaches you how to find a new job and figure yourself out. So we've done that for you. Then the first meeting that you'll have is meeting 0. It used to be we call it 10 weeks. It could be different than weeks, but it's like a number of meetings process. And now it's 11 because we have meeting 0. Meeting 0 is what you get to meet each other. When you show up to meeting 0, you will immediately start seeing some of the results, even though you haven't done a lick of work yet, because you will find out that you're not alone. Just like Phyl was willing and able to be very vulnerable in front of a lot of people, hearing each other's stories makes us feel less alone. And the loneliness and isolation and fear, when you show up to one of your job search councils and you dive in, you realize you're not alone. And even just by showing up, you start helping someone else just by your presence. And that starts to feel good. The other thing that starts to feel good is that many of us don't realize how much we miss having a team and a project if we've been out of work for a while, right? And that leads us to feeling, I never want to do this kind of work again. I'm never going to work in tech again. Maybe I'll go fold sweaters at retail. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we get to this moment where we're so depleted, our batteries are drained, we feel like we can't and don't want to even do this anymore. Once you join a job search council, those batteries are actually rechargeable, and they will start to recharge a bit just by being around other people and showing up for them and sharing stories and realizing that you're not alone. Okay, so that's meeting 0. And then there's 3 sort of pillars of work. And the pillars are just big sections of work and thinking. There's over 25 exercises that are part of this end-to-end process. The first pillar we call job search council. And that's where you get matched to a job search council, you get all the materials, you get started, and you get a moderator. And in your first meeting, you meet each other. You create a charter for your own job search council about the commitment of the members and when you're going to meet and all of those good things, and you start working together. Then you start diving into the actual exercises that you do together. So if you're chomping at the bit, you're waiting to get matched, I know there's a huge urgency here, but there is big value in doing this work together. So don't try to get ahead of the process, because the whole point is that you have collaborators. So one of the first exercises is Gratitude House. And Gratitude House is where you list the people that have been there for you in your career, the people who have helped you in your career or been influential to you. And you write letters to them. And you may never send those letters. But this is an exercise you do yourself to remember that there are people that have helped you along so far. If you're early in your career, it might be teachers, it might be relatives. If you're later in your career, once you start thinking about that, it's really interesting because you haven't thought about it in a while. I'm thinking now of a boss that I had in 1999, Dan Gallivan, who helped shape who I am today. That kind of thing goes into Gratitude House, and it starts to enable you to remember you do have a community just based on your life experiences and work experiences. Then you dive into the first collaborative exercise, which is called the Mnookin Two-Pager, and it is named after Phil's friend, Allison Mnookin, who I believe is also a professor at Harvard Business School. Anyway, a very smart person. And this is one of the deceptively simple exercises that you're going to do, and you just need to do it. So the Mnookin Two-Pager is where you pair up with another person in your job search council, and you meet on your own, the two of you, and one of you types while the other one talks. And the one who's talking answers some deceptively simple questions. And those questions are, what have you loved about previous jobs? What have you hated about previous jobs? That's looking back. And then the next questions are, what are must-haves for your future jobs? And what are must-not-haves for your future jobs, right? And you're just talking. And those are similar. And again, you probably feel like you've done this a million times, but it doesn't matter. You're going to do it again because you're going to trust the process. That other person that's listening, who's interviewing you, is typing while you're talking or taking notes or whatever, recording or whatever you want to do. And then they present back to you what you just said. Tamara, it sounds like what you've really loved in previous jobs, you said this, that, and the other thing. You love the startup environment. You love the chaos of it. You love coming in from the outside. And then they get to the must-haves and must-not-haves. Tamara, you really need a more reliable schedule now because your family situation has changed or whatever. And you start to see things that are hidden in plain sight just like that. Like you can't really go back into the startup life if you need a reliable schedule, right? When you get this fed back to you, even though you just said it, it's enlightening and illuminating. It's a strange feeling to just be like, oh, that's a good point. And you just said it, but you didn't hear yourself. You also present your Mnookin Two-Pager to the rest of the members of your job search council, and you zhuzh it a bit so that it summarizes and it becomes something that you can share. Whether or not you share the document, different people have different opinions on that, but at least gives you a place where you can summarize who you are today and what you want. And you got to remember that this changes during your career. Even a year ago, your answers to those questions might have been different. Okay, so now you have this Mnookin Two-Pager, which is summarize where you feel that you are now in your career and what you want. It's starting to summarize that, the basics. And then what you do is you plan to embark on something called the listening tour. My job search council, number 23, we did everything we could to avoid starting the listening tour because we were just freaked out about it. There's things that you're going to be nervous about. It's not hard. It's just the listening tour is about identifying people that you want to talk to now with a series of structured questions. There are 3 types of listening tour interviews that are in the book. One is called the reverse exit interview, and that's where you talk to people you've worked with in the past, and you ask them to help you understand how you were perceived in that workplace. And there's some interesting stories about this. There's one woman who was on our all-women job search council LinkedIn Live, and she actually had the guts to reach out to somebody she didn't get along with at all. They hated each other. I'm not recommending that. But what she found was when she talked to this woman, the woman said, listen, the reason we didn't get along is because I was the manager, but you tried to take over all the meetings. That's why we didn't get along. So what I think about you is actually you would be a really good leader. You just have to actually be the leader before you start leading. Right? And they ended up being friends, which I don't know that would happen for most people, but it's that perspective that you get, and you will get some surprising perspective. Hey, you're really amazing when things are confusing. You just come in and your notes end up calming everything down, or you bring energy back into the room, or whatever it is. The second kind of interview is the golden question. And I ended up using the golden question almost every time I talk to people. And the golden question is, what would you do in my situation? So the golden question interview you can do with anyone, but also you can do it with people who inspire you, people who are in jobs that interest you, people who you meet through. And what you are able to do now is give a quick summary of who you are because of that Mnookin Two-Pager exercise that you did, and you're able to do it in a fairly concise way. And then you ask them, what would you do if you were in my position? And it's a really great way to ask people for help because people really love the compliment of being asked for their opinion. And it really structures what it is you're asking from them. And it helps get some creative insight into what you want to do. This is especially great for career switchers or for domain switchers, but it's also great for people who are moving up in their career. It's also great for people deciding where they fit in the industry now. The third kind of interview is the recruiter interview. And this one, we are working on trying to create a network of recruiters to make it easier for you to get in touch with recruiters. And it's a good moment to say, especially as you get more senior in your career, Phyl very strongly recommends that anytime you get in touch with a recruiter or they get in touch with you, take the call, even if you're not looking for work, because knowing recruiters can be a helpful thing to you in your career. And some of you are recruiters. The question you ask the recruiter is, you show them your stuff. You show them your LinkedIn, your resume, and you're not doing that to say, can you please find me a job? The question you're asking them is, where do I fit in the market today? By the way, if you're thinking about ending this call and revising your LinkedIn profile and your resume, I wouldn't do it. You're not ready yet. You don't know what you want to say, which is why those tasks are so horrifying and gross. I can't think of anything worse than saying, I'm going to revise my resume today. I'm going to stick a fork in my eye. It's like the equivalent. Okay. But you show them what you got. And the reason you show it to a recruiter is because they have an enlightened, illuminated, a real life understanding of the market today. And the market today is unpleasant, especially if you are in tech. So what that means is you may be out there saying, I've been a director and now I want to be a VP of whatever, right? The recruiter is going to tell you, guess what? The market is so glutted and oversaturated with product managers that there's no way I could pitch you as a VP right now. Now, this has nothing to do with you or your skills. This has to do with the market. And it's very important that you know this doesn't have to do with you. It's going to suck to hear this kind of information. The only thing that sucks more is not knowing that and going after those VP roles and being smacked down over and over and over again. I'm not suggesting that every recruiter interview ends with them saying you have to take a cut in salary and a title, but some of them do because the market is so saturated right now. And they'll also help you understand what the job titles actually are, which are shifting all the time and all of that stuff. So you're not asking them, can you place me? You're saying, if I did nothing else, where could you place me today? Where do I fit? Then you take all of that information. And by the way, when I showed you the workbook, there was places where you can literally just use the workbook to take notes. It has the questions. It has everything in it. It has a little spreadsheet to organize your listening tour. Just use the tools that you're given. Okay. And by the way, as you start doing Job Search Council, some of you, I call it stray voltage. Your energy will pick up so much, you'll remember how much you actually like working on things and having projects that you're going to want to redesign Never Search Alone and create an AI for matching people to job search councils or create an online tool and system for automating the workbook. And by the way, that's how the workbook started because I got stray voltage and I wanted it all in one place. But unlike me, I'm not giving you permission to do that. Just use the tools as they are. We are working on all those other things. Focus on yourself rather than redesigning the system. Okay, so you've gone on your listening tour. You have all these notes. You have a different perspective. And now you'll go into the second pillar, which is candidate market fit. Candidate market fit is a genius concept. And anybody in product who's worked on any kind of product, anybody in marketing, you're going to understand this because there's a concept called product market fit. And the idea behind product market fit is that if you want to launch a new mug, you have to figure out whether there's people out there that actually want this and what's not working about the other mugs that are out there and how they are shopping for this thing today so that you don't call this a thermally inclusive liquid containment device with porta-handle because that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for a very large mug that can go in the microwave. The idea of product market fit just makes sense. That before you put something out there on the market, you better make sure people want it, and you better know what language they're using to search for it and what specifically they need, what features they need of this product. All right. You are not a product and you are not for sale. However, it can be helpful to think about your professional self, your career, you having a job in this as a product that is on the market. And the customers are the hiring managers. They are looking for the solution to a problem. And they are describing that problem in a specific way. Now, we spend so much time saying, oh, I'm going to go through AI and I'm going to optimize based on keywords and all this other stuff. It comes down to a very human thing, which is a company has a problem to solve. They may or may not describe it well, but then it causes them to look for you in a particular way, right? Using the language that they're looking for. And when you come up with candidate market fit, the idea is that you need to get to an extremely specific description of who you are today and what you want. So that's called creating a spear. Let me talk about spear versus net. So the opposite of candidate market fit is what we all are inclined to do, which is put a LinkedIn message out there or something and say, I'll take anything related to product. Because you will. Like, yes, sure, I'll take an entry-level product management. Once we get to that point, you're like, yes. And you think, if I say it broadly, I'm more likely to find something. Okay, now I'll do a switcheroo in your brains and picture yourself reading that message on LinkedIn from a friend. What do? You say, oh, anybody would be lucky to have you. Let me know if I can be helpful. You don't immediately think of someone to introduce them to. And that's because it's too broad. No one knows where to put you. So in our effort to get more, we get less. Because people have a hard time reducing from a broad statement to that to the idea that Jennifer would be great in that position I just heard my friend Bob talk about, even though it's not an exact match. Doesn't work. What does work counterintuitively is if you are able to create a statement that looks more like this. I am looking for a senior product manager role as an individual contributor in an established product management organization in a 5,000 plus person growth startup in the telecom industry. Terrifying, right? Way too narrow, but it's not. Because if you put those kinds of statements out there, people are able to say, okay, I know who you are, I know what you want, and they don't, and what can happen is they say, oh, I know of a position just like that, but it's in healthcare, not telecom. Maybe I should introduce them. Or I know something that's like that, but it's actually a startup in telecom that really wants experienced product people, but they're under 100 people. Maybe I'll make that introduction. As Phyl said, our brains are more able to be expansive than contractive. So the more specific that spear, that candidate market fit statement, and this is a hard one, and there's lots of examples and you're going to work together and it's terrifying and you can change it and all those other things. But someone has to have a crystal clear idea of who you are and what you want now. If you don't, then by definition, you're asking someone else to have a clear idea of you. And how the hell are they going to do that? We're acting like recruiters or hire managers will look at this broad statement and say, I can see exactly how they will solve my problem. Very hard part of this, genius candidate market fit. Okay. Once you have your candidate market fit, you are now able to update your resume and your LinkedIn with the help of your job search counsel. Because now you know what you want to say, who you're competing with, what kind of job descriptions you're going after, and suddenly you can be narrow. And by the way, it took me 2 years to take this advice. I'm a consultant in tech, and the truth is I am a early stage startup person. Unfortunately, nobody ever told me that early stage startups don't have money. I wish somebody had. Big joke there for you startup people. And so I was out there saying, oh, I can bring my skills to a large company that wants to behave more like a startup. But I wasn't being specific. And once I tailored my stuff more, I made more sense to people. And they were able to be expansive about me and understand that if I can fix a startup, maybe I can help fix something else. Okay. And by the way, I came into this and I was in a professional nosedive, which I never thought would happen to me. But it did, and this helped me too. And it helped me decide to stay a consultant as opposed to go back in-house. So it's not explicitly for that, but candidate market fit, in my case, consultant market fit, it's hard, but it's good. The last pillar is play to win. And that is the interview and negotiation process a la Phyl. If you are already maybe you're already having an interview tomorrow. Maybe you had an interview last Thursday. Maybe you think you're going to get something in the next week. That's fine. Read the whole book tonight. That's what I'll tell you. Like, do not read it, and definitely get to the interviewing and negotiation playing to win section. And do not leave before you understand that, because it's probably one of the most powerful things in this whole process. You've gone through, you have a job search council, you have candidate market fit, and now you have materials that are making you shine. And at some point, you will get an interview. And when you get an interview, the first step is to create a job mission and OKR document. And OKR stands for Objectives and Key Results. You could, if you wanted to, spend the next 6 years of your life reading materials about what OKRs are and the right way to do them. I wouldn't recommend that, personally. In this context, what you're doing is you are translating a job description, which I like to call a big dumb bully that should only be used for parts, and you're turning it into your impression of what it is they need you to deliver. I like personally to think about this as, in 6 months, if they hire the right person, what numbers will have changed by how much? Are they looking for somebody, if they say they need a senior design leader, are they looking for somebody to pump out 400 wireframes to get ahead of the dev team? Or are they looking for someone who will have started hiring strategy team? There's very different actual deliverables. Now, how do you get to this? One way you get to this is to research the company and look carefully at the job description, which may be wrong, right? But when you start to talk to the recruiters, especially when you start to talk to the hiring manager, creating an OKR document, a job mission and OKR, leads you to ask some very good questions about specifically what they're looking for and what success will look like in this job. This does a couple things. One important thing is it helps you keep you from rebounding. So what happens with job search is just like what happens with dating. And those of you who don't have to deal with dating anymore, congratulations, because it's, ugh. Anyway, your friends, if you're dating and you just broke up with somebody, you start looking at somebody else and you're like, oh, I'm really excited about this. And they'll be like, Tamara, that's exactly the same person you dated last time. They just have a different color hair. And you say, no, this one's different. This one's going to be so much better. It's not going to be like the last one. This is a better team. This is a better description. This is a better vertical. So there's a lot of times when we do get a job offer, rebound jobs happen, out of the frying pan into the fire jobs happen. If we aren't careful in assessing what it is they actually want us to do and whether or not we'll be successful doing it, whether we'll have the support that we need. It keeps you from pursuing the wrong jobs, right? If it is the right job, at a point during the interview process, you find a way, and there are different ways to do this. You don't send it over email, but when you are asked if there are more questions about the role, this gives you a great way to ask structured questions and sometimes even share this draft job mission and OKR document with the hiring manager, and it blows their socks off because you have just done the most important thing they need to do, which is prove you are a doer and not just a talker. You are delivering a description of the job that's probably much clearer than the description that they had. Now, I'm not saying you need to figure out before you talk to them whether or not they need to raise the net promoter score by 2 points or 3 points. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's even necessarily saying a specific metric, but you're saying, this is what I'm hearing you say we have to really work on, and what I'm hearing the relative priorities are. Okay? And this can really help you getting from silver medal to gold medal. So if you are in the process now, go start to do that and look at it that way. There's tons of examples that are linked in the workbook. There's entire channels on the Slack channel where people are going over job missions and OKRs. And think of it as writing your own performance guidelines for the first 6 months on the job. If they hire the right person, what numbers will change by how much? Okay, it's so genius. Okay, when you then get the offer, when you get the offer, then there is the last piece of advice, which is on negotiating. And this was more substantive before the Tech-mageddon happened and the whole Work-mageddon happened. What you want to do here is you want to negotiate beyond title and salary. Yes, title and salary are important, especially right now in the working world in November 2024. Those things are less negotiable than they used to be. There isn't a lot of back and forth on salary or title. What you can control and can ask for is whether you're going to get the supplies, the resources, the support that you need to be happy in your job. And the joking example I give of this is they better add in several $1,000s for sticky notes for me, because otherwise I will not be successful in my job. It could be budget for tools. It could be mentorship. It could be budget to build a team. It could be continuing education. There are legs of the negotiation stool beyond title and salary. And if you negotiate for the things that you need to be happy in your job, you are more likely to get promoted anyway, because you're going to be tootling along happily. This could be subscriptions to your favorite tools. Whatever it could be that you want to be able to listen in on board meetings, access to board members, depending on where you are in your career, right? And that is all covered in the book as well. And it's very important to be able to do that. Okay, that is the overview of what you're in for. And typically this piece ends earlier because we don't have a guest star, but we did have a guest star. What I can tell you is I can stay on here for another 40 minutes. I know some of you cannot, and that's totally fine. But what I want to tell you is I'm here to answer any questions. If you're interested and willing to share where you are right now, how you got here, if you have any questions about the process, raise your hand. If you have to go, no harm, no foul. Nobody's keeping attendance. And so you can use the tools at the bottom of the screen to raise your hand. I will address a couple of questions that we always get. I haven't been matched yet. How long will it take? That totally depends on how many people we have applying. We had big boosts in applications after the Lenny's podcast, which is like being on Oprah in the tech world that Phyl did. And so it depends on the supply. And so as we get a supply of people applying, we're able to match them better. It can take 2 or 3 weeks to do. The original idea of Never Search Alone was to release the book and people would create their own. So that's also something you can do, is create your own job search council and register it with us. You let us know you exist. We give you a number. You get the Slack. You get the workbook. You get everything that you want. So that's another option for you. Okay. And if you're in an odd zip code, not that it's odd, but around the world, it can be, there's fewer people applying. You can also put a post on LinkedIn or wherever and say, hey, I'm doing this crazy job search council thing. If you need to switch job search councils or people don't show or whatever, there are whole channels on the Slack that will help you do that. And also you just let Emily know and Emily will do her best. Okay, folks, so it's a little bit later and I'm recording this just to let you know that is our orientation for you. I recorded that one in front of a live orientation audience of about 250 people. And now it's available for you to watch anytime. If I didn't cover any of your questions, we can see you in the Slack channel. Before you go, here's some extra additional, more inspiring content. These are comments and remarks from Phyl Terry, the author of Never Search Alone, and there's nothing more inspiring than hearing the author of the process speak. And so I'm going to turn it over to Phyl, who's going to give us some thoughts and advice that they had after the election that happened in November of 2024. Again, so glad you found us. So sorry you had to. Big things have happened here in the United States. Not sure you heard, but we had an election. And Phyl wanted to chime in and say a few words. And I'm so delighted to turn the floor over to Phyl for a few minutes. And Phyl, of course, Phyl Terry, who wrote Never Search Alone and launched this amazing free network it's a free private safety net for people looking for work. It works. It's all run by volunteers like me. And Phyl, please tell us what you have to say this morning.
Welcome to the Never Search Alone community. And I want to thank Tamara Adlin, who's one of the many volunteers. We've had more than 20,000 hours of volunteer work go into this in the last 2 years. I'm glad you're here, although I'm not glad you're here, if you know what I mean. I'm glad you found us. I'm not glad you're in the position of looking for a job in this tough job market. And I just wanted to share a few thoughts, at least for those of you who are U.S.-based. And a number of people have asked me about the elections, and I had no secret prediction ball before, and I don't really have anything special to say except and it's connected to the way we think about the job search, which is this old notion of don't mourn, organize. A key theme of Never Search Alone is stand up and take charge of your job search. There's a little phrase I like to use. There may not be the letter I. There may be no I in team, but there is an I in village, meaning you have to be independent and take charge and reliant on others. Independent and reliant. Take responsibility and build a web of support. That's what we're all about. And it's hard when you've been laid off, when bad decisions maybe led to that, but you paid the price rather than the people who made the bad decisions. Or you may be left on your own, but now you're facing this tough job market, whatever it might be. It's easy to feel victimized or humiliated and get passive. And I know this, and it comes not just from my 25 years of working with thousands of leaders and many of them job seekers along the way, but also my personal experience, which I haven't really talked about a lot in Never Search Alone. But if I have your permission, I'd like to just share a brief story with you that might be relevant, might find helpful on this particular day, but also in terms of your own job search. So if you're up for that, let me share with you. So back in 1990, I know that's a long time ago, perhaps some of you weren't even born yet, I got really sick. And I had a movement disorder. I lost control of my arms and legs. I couldn't walk or move around. Also had trouble with the muscles in my neck and was hospitalized. The doctors ran a number of tests and they couldn't figure out what was happening. At the time, I thought I was crazy, but I was also broke. I was a community organizer making $16,000 a year with no medical benefits. And then suddenly I'm in the hospital and have no chance of work. The social worker helped me apply for welfare. And so they sent me home. I'm now on welfare in a wheelchair, living in a friend's second floor walk-up apartment, okay? So I couldn't even leave the apartment if I wanted to. And I'm getting, at the time, welfare, the monthly welfare payment in New York City was $291 a month, okay? Not a lot of money. And I also got food stamps worth about $50. So that was supposed to cover everything. I had no savings and no family money. A number of friends stopped by regularly, give me $5 or $10 and bring food and cook for me. One, a former nurse, actually helped me go to the bathroom and take a shower and stuff like that. It was pretty intense, as you can imagine. And I had a therapist that I had been working with. And she knew about my childhood. I was an alcoholic by the age of 12. I had pretty unstable and screwed up childhood. And I went to this therapist. Her name was Nancy. And I'm in this wheelchair. I have no money. To get to therapy, by the way, my friends had to come and carry me downstairs and push me over there. And I'm like, I want to talk about how my life is over. And she's, I want to talk about what you want to do. I'm like, what do you mean what I want to do? Well, I can't do it. And she's, no, I understand. And this sucks. And she said, no, I understand that. But given that this sucks, what do you want to do? I'm like, what the fuck? I was so mad. What are you fucking talking about? And I ended up leaving the session and going home like angry. I wanted to throw myself into the gutter, but I couldn't even do that. I had no ability to do that. But that question that she asked, okay, it sucks. What do you want to do? That kind of has stuck with me now for 40 years. And it eventually back then helped me stabilize my health. I ended up sending a letter. So I'm broke and poor. It's 1990. It's pre-web. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? And I didn't have the term candidate market fit, but I know I needed to get some skills. So I wrote a letter to 60 computer companies, 60, and asked if any one of them would be willing to give me a computer, a monitor, software, printer, a chair, and a desk, because I didn't even have that. And it was insane. I had a friend who worked at an ad agency who helped me send this out. I'm just this person. I'm not a nonprofit. And unbelievably, one of them said yes. And they came and set me up. Now, if that hadn't worked, which there's no reason to think it should have, I would have tried some other dumb thing. I don't know. I had to do stuff. I heard what my therapist said. This sucks. What do I want to do? And I ended up taking C++ classes over the phone at Queensboro Community College in New York. And then 3 years later, I was able to get out of that wheelchair. I continued to have problems. They eventually put me on medications that worked. And I got a job as a technology trainer at Moody's Investor Service. By the way, within a month of getting that job, I developed severe RSI in both of my arms. I could no longer operate a computer. So then I had to go on a whole different odyssey there. And the ADA was relatively new and the company didn't know what to do. So I wrote letters to voice recognition companies asking if they would donate technology to me in return for me being a tester. So I just wanted to share this with you. I don't know if you find this helpful, but it's what informs a lot of what we do here today. Don't mourn, organize. It sucks. Now what? And I would say that my humiliation and victimization didn't go away. In fact, I still have that very much today. It's baked into my psychology. We joke, me and my therapist, that it's not that something happens and I feel humiliated. It's more like I feel humiliated all the time and then something happens. I'm like, oh, that's why I feel humiliated. But in the midst of that mess, with the help of others, I was able to do something creative. And that's the spirit in which we run this community. And that's the spirit in which I address things like the results from the elections. So if it didn't go your way, maybe some of you are happy with the way it went. I'm not having a political dialogue right now. It's more like when things don't go your way, it's tough. And I want to really be empathetic and have us as a community be empathetic and understanding. And also say, okay, now what do we want to do? And that level of creativity and initiative is what is needed today. Because the job search in the tech world sucks, okay? But also, if you happen to be in media and entertainment, sucks. In fact, most professional jobs, there's been a significant decline in employment. So the employment, I don't know if you guys have seen the stuff I've published on LinkedIn, but I publish a lot on LinkedIn, and if you don't follow me, you might want to. I give a detailed look at the jobs report. So the headline numbers for the last several years have been an increase in jobs. But those have primarily been in government and healthcare. They have, and they've not been white collar jobs primarily. And so if you're a white collar worker, especially in tech or media, there has been a decline in the number of jobs that are out there. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Pandemic overhang, AI, the way AI is affected. AI is not replacing jobs today. What's happening is uncertainty about AI is preventing companies from hiring people. Okay. It's an important nuanced difference. It's not AI itself is replacing people. It's the uncertainty about what AI is going to mean is preventing many companies from hiring. So it is tough out there. And I wanted to say hello. And normally Tamara runs these and it does an amazing job. And I'm going to leave in a moment and let her do her thing. We have an amazing community. The last thing I'll say is if you get on a job search council and it's not going well or it stops, get another one. We have processes for doing that where things are like, don't be passive, including in your relationship to this community. Be active. And yes, Florence, don't be afraid of AI. Be curious, try it out. And definitely, I was talking to a job seeker the other day who's been out for 2 years and they were stuck. They weren't doing things. They were feeling humiliated. Michael, have you taken a class on AI? No, I've been thinking about it. Take the class. Have you gone out and reassessed your candidate market fit, which they did 2 years ago? The thing about candidate market fit is constantly changing. This methodology, I'll say this last thing, Tamara, and then turn it over to you. This methodology was developed first. The first inkling came that moment when I was in a wheelchair on welfare. Okay. Then in 2000, 2001, 2002, when the tech downturn created a depression in the internet world, and suddenly all my clients were out of work, and it was built in that moment and then reinforced in the great financial crisis. People sometimes think, oh, this is only for up markets. No, it's designed to work in any market, but certainly in a down market. And because you need that support even more in a down market, you need that job search council and that human support, and you need that candidate market fit. You need an objective assessment of the intersection between what you want and what the market wants and how your skills are perceived given this moment. And I'll tell you, it's different from a year ago, and it's different certainly from before the pandemic overhang began. in the tech market. So really, I hope you embrace this. We've tested the heck out of it over 25 years, and we've got this great volunteer team here ready to help. But you have to take the initiative and really drive. Hang in there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're here. I'm glad you're here, and I'm sorry you're facing some what is likely a tougher job search than certainly a few years ago, and maybe a tougher job search than you've had in your life.
I'd love to say one more thing while you're here, and I think it's fair that I think I'm speaking for all of the volunteers. Job search councils are going to be safe spaces for people. If any of you feel uncomfortable for any reason in any of your job search councils, you need to let us know. There is a code of conduct for job search councils. So the community here is going to stay a big, inclusive community with people to back that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for adding that, Tamara. And yeah, it's meant to create an environment of psychological safety or trust. And the way you create that is you be vulnerable right from the get-go and meeting zero. And Tamara probably say a few words about that. But thank you for being here. Thanks for investing in yourselves and helping to build a community. We have aspirations to really turn this into a private volunteer-led safety net for the unintended consequences of creative destruction and elements of capitalism that leave really people out in the cold. And
how many job search councils are we up to now? How many people and how many councils? You're the one with the data.
So we're nearing 3,000 in terms of job search councils. 30,000 people have been touched by the program, downloaded the tools, and somewhere over 12,000 people have been on job search councils. And we've just begun. And we want to reach millions of people. We think everyone deserves to not be alone and get the kind of support and enveloped community that we're building here. So we're in it for the long haul. And the volunteers, yeah, Sabina, I don't remember how many are going at the moment. The total that have been launched is nearing 3,000. I think somewhere like half of that or something are currently active.
A lot of people, I'm the moderator of Job Search Council number 23, and we're still in touch. So this is also, you're some friend leagues.
Yeah. You build, if it goes well, you build friendships for life, which is so important. Because loneliness isn't just a problem in the job search, it's a problem in our society, actually. And it leads to being more vulnerable to being manipulated by demagogues and others, by the way. So there's an underground philosophical connection there. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tamara. And good luck. Hang in there.
Thank you, Phyl. Again, so glad you found us. So sorry you had to. But we, the entire crew of volunteers, and of course, Phyl Terry, the author, Never Search Alone, are so happy that you found this resource for help. Best of luck to you.